everybody, welcome back. Live at Drew's house, no longer in Drew's house. Afternoon drive from Newburyport, back in the studio. Boy, that feels good. It has been a long time since I've been back here. Hope everybody is doing well. No better day to do it than Veterans Day, and we are here again, and so happy to be joined by our guest today. Dudley Farquhar joins us, the pride of Merrimack, I almost said the Merrimack Valley. He's the pride of Merrimack, where he lives now, born in Newburyport. First time I'm meeting you. Dudley, how are you, sir?
Good. Nice to meet you.
Good. A veteran of Vietnam, and quite a military record you have there. Why don't we were talking a little bit about it off the air. Why don't you give me a little bit about that? You've seen quite a bit of service.
Well, right after high school, I had a choice to make, and my grades weren't the greatest in high school. You could go to college, face the draft, or go to Canada. That was about the three choices you had. So I enlisted in the Army. It was my intention to be, after my service, time in the service, I wanted to be a state cop. So I enlisted in the Army to be a military policeman, and I thought that would give me a good stepping stone to get into the state police. The best laid plans of mice and men do sometime go astray. I did go through basic training, and then I went to the Military Police Academy through the Army and graduated from there. And after I graduated, I was stationed in San Francisco. That was a little over 8 months. This was 1968, so San Francisco in 1968 was a very good place to be for a young man. But
you like music? Good place for music lovers, right?
Yes. I got to see Sonny and Cher before anybody knew who Sonny and Cher was. You know, they weren't that popular in '68. But anyways, the duty involved. There was a prison. We were stationed right above the Golden Gate Bridge, and I woke up every morning to the view of Alcatraz in the distance. But we did patrols downtown. San Francisco was a very busy place because the Navy, after they served their 6-month sea duty, would come into Oakland and then go over to San Francisco to party, so to speak. And it was very interesting because they used to team us up. I represented the Army, so I was looking out for the Army personnel that were partying downtown San Francisco. But they usually hooked us up with a Marine, Air Force, or an Army man, and we would patrol the streets and the bars and try to avert trouble. So we did that. That was our duty for a month, and then we did color guards and honor guards and firing squads. And this is where I think I got my early PTSD from going to 2 funerals a day for 30 straight days, and seeing people that were my age, coming back. I was 20 years old at the time, but a lot of the killed in action from Vietnam were 18 and 19-year-old kids, and we would go to the church service and be pallbearers, carry the casket out to the hearse, and then we would go to San Francisco National, which if anybody has ever been there, is a beautiful, beautiful cemetery right up there with Arlington as far as I'm concerned, because I've been to both cemeteries, and they're both on a par. They're 2 of the finest cemeteries in the country. And
you literally mean 2 funerals a day when you say that.
I do. There's multiple funerals a day, but our 30th MP Battalion, which I was attached to at the time, that was part of our role as MPs, to be with the family and present the flag from the casket. And so if you do that for 30 straight days, they didn't have funerals on Sunday, so 6 days a week. It's pretty heavy for your mind to comprehend. I had no intentions of going to Vietnam, but and then the third month there was a prison, maximum security prison at Presidio, and we were prison guards for a month. And that was tough duty because maximum security. We had all the rough criminals with hard crimes, and they would come from Long Beach Jail in Vietnam, and we were basically a processing prison. But because of the crimes that they had committed, murder and rape, they came into Oakland, and then we'd have to go over and pick them up in Oakland and secure them in the prison. And then they might be there from 3 to 5 months before they got transferred to another prison closer to where, their home of record was. So I did that. I was also involved in the Berkeley riots, which received a lot of publicity here in the States, along with Kent State. But because we're an MP battalion, we got called out to that, and we basically had to use tear gas on basically kids that were our age. They were college kids, So that was very traumatic on a young soldier. I don't care what branch of the service you were in. These are kids your own age, and it has a lasting impact on you.
That's all by what age?
I was 20 at the time.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
Talk about a lot of American history.
Yes. So, and I was also there when Bobby Kennedy was killed in L.A. L.A.'s about 500 miles from San Francisco. So we were on alert on that because they were expected riots, after he was killed, and that didn't materialize. So we didn't go to L.A. But I remember, what it was like to, be there. A Kennedy from my state, Massachusetts, So
tell me a little more about Berkeley too, because that is I've heard stories about Kent State, and that was a weird spot that a lot of the people that were told to go and police things were told.
If you've ever seen the Kent State riots, where the National Guard also used tear gas, and there was 6 people killed at that event. There was nobody killed at Berkeley, but there were some injuries. They were throwing rocks at us. We had these big, heavy plastic shields in front of us, and we shaped in a V with men along each sides of the V, and then we would take a step at a time to try to disperse the crowd.
Yeah.
So it was it was a pretty wild time, and of course we patrolled Haight-Ashbury, which was, that was the center of happening in 1968 was Haight-Ashbury. They came from all over the country just to visit Haight-Ashbury. But the place that I liked the best was a place called Sausalito, and it was right across the Golden Gate Bridge, and it reminded me a lot of Rockport. It was right on the ocean, and the Navy had a prison off of Sausalito called Treasure Island, and sometimes we would take people from Oakland, Navy personnel, and take them by car over to Treasure Island. So
all right, so you're 20. All this is happening in your young 20s. What you said, something that jumped out at me a couple minutes ago. There, you had no intentions of going to Vietnam.
No.
What happened?
Well, after about 8 months in San Francisco, I got caught on what they call the manpower levy, and I got orders for Germany, and I figured I'd be an MP in Germany. Well, when I signed my contract, my enlisting contract, they guaranteed me to be an MP and to get one duty assignment. So the duty assignment was up after 6 months. And then I didn't know it, but they could do with me what they wanted to do. So when I got to Germany, I was quite shocked that they put me in a tank unit. And I was in Germany for about 14 months, I think it was, before I got so fed up with it that I volunteered on my own to serve from Vietnam. And
Wow.
it's interesting because I was playing baseball on my my unit's team, and the colonel who basically this was his team, and he got all the best athletes in his battalion, and they played baseball once a week, and we traveled by trains to other locations, played German teams and NATO soldiers. I was Grafenwehr, Germany was a training facility for all NATO troops. So you had a lot of troops from foreign countries that trained at Grafenwehr, and a lot of those troops from foreign countries also played baseball. So we played some of those teams at anyway.
Serious games, right?
Yes, they were serious. And the ironic thing about the whole thing, the colonel, who was the battalion commander at the time, he used to bet heavily on the outcome of these games. So, and he did not want to lose. So the shortstop, I was playing left field, and initially I was playing left field, and the shortstop broke a leg at a play at second base, and I went in and played shortstop. So when I put in my orders, my request, 1049 they call it, request for Vietnam, I was denied because the colonel didn't want to lose his now starting shortstop.
Oh my goodness, what a story.
So I wrote a letter to Ted Kennedy, my senator at the time, from back in Massachusetts, and expressed an interest that, here I was a good soldier, and I was, being underutilized. I wanted to get back in my own MOS and go to Vietnam as an MP. And so within 2 weeks, I had orders for Vietnam. And I got to Vietnam, and they put me in tanks.
Wow.
So I not sure that I really wanted to go to Vietnam, but I was just so fed up with we trained all the time. It was a constant going to different parts of Germany, Grafenwehr, Wildfleck, and Hornsville. These are towns that anybody that served in Germany knows very well. What happened in those areas. So
kids are watching this though, and they're thinking, "My goodness, you were playing baseball in Germany, and then you volunteered for Vietnam. What are you, crazy?"
Yeah.
I mean, there's
and it was funny because as a part of playing on the colonel's team, we were exempt from KP or guard duty at night, which was kind of nice because we were training all during the day, anyways. So that was one of the benefits. Was playing baseball. I didn't get to play that many months before I got picked for the team. It was I don't know, maybe 3 months that I got to travel by train to the Geffen games. Of course, we had a field on our base where they came to us to play too. So, but the colonel was well known to bet highly on his team winning, And the ironic thing is, later, at the end of my tour in Vietnam, I went on R&R, and I was in Saigon, and I met the colonel.
Oh, you bumped back into him?
Yeah, bumped back into him, and we had a nice little talk,
You were gonna...
And he was talking about the shortstop that replaced me, and he was just as happy.
You're my big time utility man. We could have used you.
You're going back to left field,
That is too funny. Again, we're joined here by Dudley Farquhar from Merrimack, born here in Newburyport, and a proud veteran here on Veterans Day. So tell me a little bit about Vietnam. Do you think you really, in your heart of hearts, knew what you were signing up for? I know you wanted to get out of Germany, but
I had no clue. I had received a lot of weapons training as an MP because you have to qualify with basically most of the weapons that the Army has. But to be on a tank, I was on in Germany, I was on an M60 tank, which is a very heavy tank, weighs about 48 tons, and not designed for Vietnam because it sank in the rice paddies, So they used it for security purposes at fire bases and convoys and stuff like that. But as a crew member I had a lot of experience as a crew member of an M60 tank, but when I got to Vietnam, they assigned me on a armored personnel carrier, APC, which is a M113. people that have a military background are very familiar with the APC. So we had a Sheridan tank with I was with the first of the first CAV, and we were an armored unit, but basically we act as infantry. We rode through the jungles, but we would park our tracks and send out patrols. It was basically our job to find and kill the enemy before he did the same to us. And it was a miserable existence. And I just want to say up front, when I first got there was this platoon sergeant that, and it's funny because when you first go to Vietnam, they call you an FNG, and that first initial is not friendly. So you can use your imagination what everybody called you. And when you were an FNG, nobody wanted to have anything to do with you. They didn't want you to know your name because FNGs made mistakes, and we were new to country. But this particular platoon sergeant, I came in with about 7 or 8 other guys all at the same time. We landed in Cam Ranh Bay, but then we went way up north, what they call the I Corps, northern Vietnam, which is the closest to Hanoi, and probably one of the worst duty stations in Vietnam of the 4 corps in Vietnam, because the Ho Chi Minh Trail ran right through I Corps to get to other parts of Vietnam. So the enemy was always constant in our area of operations. But anyways, that platoon sergeant early on took me under his wings and basically taught me the survival skills that I desperately needed to learn to survive a year in Vietnam. And that platoon sergeant was killed in action about 6 months into my tour, and then a month after that, I made sergeant, and I was doing the same thing for the new guys that came in, trying to give them the skills that they needed to learn to survive their tour of duty.
That has to cross your mind. I mean, you lost this staff sergeant 6 months after meeting him. I mean,
we were totally, out of it, at that point in time, because he had meant so much to so many, and he was also our demolitions man. So he was very good at blowing things up.
Yeah.
But
you think about him often still?
Him and I had a lot in common because he was a good old Southern boy from North Carolina, and he had 5 sisters, but he grew up on a farm. And I grew up in foster care here in Massachusetts. I lived in 16 foster homes in 9 years.
Oh, wow.
But the one that I ended up with in Merrimack was a man that owned a 13-acre farm. So the farm background between him and me, both of us knew how hard farmers. It's a long day for farmers.
Yeah.
They're constantly, doing something. There's always something to be done around the farm.
Do you remember his name, or do you prefer to keep that private?
I know his name. And later in the show, I'm going to read a poem that's dedicated to his memory.
Oh, all right, very nice.
But his name was Robert Clark Dawson. And ironically, the foster parents that I ended up with, their last name was Clark. Yeah. And there was a Robert Clark in the family. So it's just one of those little life's ironies. And to this day, I still correspond with his oldest sister. She doesn't live too far from where they grew up. He's from Clayton, North Carolina, and she currently lives in Raleigh, North Carolina. So,
she must love that.
And they were he would never admit it to his other sisters, but she was his favorite sisters out of the 5. So they were very, very close.
You must have lost. Obviously, he was close to you, but I'm sure you lost count of how many people that meant a lot to you that you lost there.
Yes, yeah. It's a constant, and Veterans Day brings it all back. Veterans Day and Memorial Day. There are things that trigger my PTSD from that experience. It's been 51 years. I've been home for 51 years, but sometimes it feels like yesterday. There are things that that trigger bad memories, you know. And
Never forget.
no, you don't. It doesn't. It doesn't go away. Was a famous saying: "Those who see war never stop seeing it." And there's a lot of reality to that. And somebody who probably has never experienced PTSD.
Is it all bad when Veterans Day comes around? I'm sure you have these memories. You lost
no,
people.
because I try to stay positive and do things positive, you know. And you know, my Vietnam experience shaped the individual that I would turn into after Vietnam. And I also got to say, one of the tremendous factors in why I survived my tour of duty in Vietnam was that I had a girlfriend back here in Massachusetts from Ipswich, a girlfriend who wrote me constantly, kept my morale up, and I came home and married that girl.
Wow.
From Ipswich, and
She was here waiting.
yeah. You know, we picked up, and she was actually my foster father's brother. That was his daughter, and so I was legally getting on the Clark tree. That was their last name was Clark's, you know.
Yeah.
So there was another little irony of the twist, you know.
Yeah, there is some truth to that, because I mean, we've had a guest on the show who I'm fairly close with. He's been on the show a few times. His name is Mark Bishop Evans. I don't think you'd have a reason to know him, but he's a Vietnam veteran, and long story short, he could play guitar and he's a musician, and they pulled him from his fire in the gun duty and said, we got to start uplifting our bases because morale is down. And they put together a band, and he actually said he got shot at more with that guitar than he did with his rifle flying from base to base, which is a story that I'll always remember. But he was telling me some of those bases, I mean, you go into play after a tough battle and you see some stuff, and you certainly see morale not high. And it was hard to keep morale up, as I'm sure I don't need to tell you.
We didn't. Our particular unit spent most of our time in the jungle, so we didn't get to see any USO shows. But we did. Bob Hope was in Chulai. That's where our home base was. But most of the time we worked out of a fire base called Hawk Hill, which is north of Tam Key, for those familiar with Vietnam. But that was we were so far away we couldn't see it. We could hear the music, you know, and see the girls that he had with him, but that was the closest I got to a USO show.
So when you're out there, I mean, you're literally living in the jungle. I mean, what sleeping arrangements? Like, you're just trying to get a few hours here or there?
Some of us had air mattresses, but we were so exhausted at the end of the day, you didn't feel like blowing up an air mattress. You know? We slept under the tracks and in the tracks, and you know, we had to pull guard duty every night, 2-hour shifts. So you know, you put in an 18-hour day, and then you got 2 hours of guard duty at night, and it's light early in the morning, so you don't get much sleep, you know, and that's a constant rotation, you know, it's day in and day out. But you learn after a while that you take everything a day at a time, you know. There was an old saying in basic training: stay alert, stay alive. And if you did that, you know, you'd be ready for the consequences of the day, you know. But every day could bring a new surprise, you know. So you really had to stay aware of your surroundings, you know, who's with you. You know, you get to trust some soldiers more than others. You know their strong points, you know their weak points, you know their girlfriends, you know if they got a Dear John letter from back home, you know, that affects that soldier and can impact on you as a soldier that's with that soldier, you know. So you live and learn about the people that you're going through that situation with, you know.
Incredible bonds.
Yes, and it's a bond that doesn't go away when you come back home, you know. That will always be there, you know. I mean, I have friends from, you know, Ohio and Pennsylvania and California, and we still talk, you know, and you know, we talk about stuff that we understand, you know. You know, we go over in our heads things that happened, and it's a positive, especially if you have PTSD. You know.
Yeah, I noticed you. I could see you triggered some memories when you said there are surprises out there. You're fighting in a jungle that
Yeah.
you're not familiar with. The enemy is familiar with.
Yeah.
What kind of surprises were there? What was the closest you came to going, this is a bad spot I'm in?
Oh, I was in so many bad spots, you know. I mean, a good friend of mine, the company commander, he was a captain. He was a West Point graduate, fantastic leader of men, and his driver got killed, and I had to drive. They chose me to drive the company commander around, and he had a platoon sergeant that had done 3 tours in Vietnam, and he was excellent at what he did. So, you know, I was very apprehensive about, you know, taking that driver's spot, because the company commander track has a huge antenna on it, and the enemy knows that this is where all the artillery's being called in from, all the airdrops, you know, the gunships, the helicopters, you know. He has access to all that
You're a big target.
you know, firepower. So you are a target, and I drove for him for 3 months. 3 months is a long time for a driver. The driver is the most vulnerable person on a track or a tank, because he's closest to the ground, you know. And we used to take our flak jackets and put it underneath our seats, and if it was a small bomb, you know, you could survive it, and the shrapnel would go into the flak jacket. But a lot of these bombs were 500 and 1,000 pound, and it would just blow the front of the track and the driver to smithereens. You know, not noticeable. You couldn't tell it was the person, and it had no features left. You know, so.
And most drivers know this going
Oh,
into.
yes, yes.
It's not a secret.
But it's usually you know, it's usually the assignment that you are given when you're new to country, you know. And of course, I was assigned to another track initially, because you know, that was the new guy's job. And it's funny because, you know, it takes about, I'd say in the unit that I was in, it takes about 3 months to get accepted by your peers, you know, before they can count on you, you know, to do your job and
stay alive, right?
Yeah, and perform, you know, with the other men around you, you know, because you not only have to know your job, but you have to know the job of the people that are on your vehicle together, you know. So, and I one of the more traumatic experiences when I was over there is that I got malaria, and we had a rule in the jungle that you couldn't go to a hospital unless you had a temperature of 104. 104 would get you out of the field. So I hovered around 103 for about 2 weeks, and then my temperature spiked to 106.5, which is
Oh my goodness.
pretty near death. And I was in and out of consciousness. So they medevaced me out, and I went to the hospital, and then I had a tremendous traumatic experience, because there was a big battle going on up north of us, and they were bringing in all these casualties. So they had a triage area outside the hospital where all the cots of the wounded were, you know. And I was probably among, you know, 100 cots, you know, and they do an assessment of, you know, your basically your probability of surviving, you know. They know in some particular cases there's no hope for that individual person. So in my state of being in and out of consciousness, I noticed that there was a toe tag on the end of my toe, and it had a big E on it, the letter E. And I found out much later what that E meant. But there was a nurse that came out after a while, and I said to her, I said, what's that E stand for? And she says, oh, don't worry, son, that's extra special. We take good care of everybody. Well, when I actually got inside the hospital, I found out E was expectant.
Oh my.
So they didn't expect me to live, so they went on to the other people before they got back to me,
Oh my goodness.
But I was in a hospital in Chulai for 2 weeks, and then they sent me up to Da Nang to another hospital, because when you got malaria, you have to be in a very clean environment, so you can't be on a ward with other soldiers. So they sent me to another place in Da Nang, and I was up near there. There was a hospital ship called the Hope, and the Hope, if you got to the Hope, you knew you were going home.
Okay.
And I got better when I was in Da Nang, and while I was in the hospital, I got promoted to sergeant, and I went back to Chulai, and then went back with my unit. And,
How old are you at this point?
22, I think.
22.
Yeah.
Are you now? I mean, you've seen what this Vietnam War is.
At this point in time, I had been in country about 8 or 9 months.
I mean, are you like a lot of normal people would be? I'm good to go home. Or were you kind of hoping that, or did you?
Oh, I was hoping to go. I was hoping to get on the Hope, because
I would think so.
A boat takes a long time to get back home. But I mean, you just think about the whole time you're there. You think about the day you're going to go home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they call it the Freedom Bird back home. The flight that takes you out, and I remember that flight distinctly, because the pilot, and even when we were all loaded on the plane, it was deadly silent.
What year? What year is it?
This is December of 1970. So. And we get up there, and we're flying for a while, and then the pilot comes over the aircraft and he says, ladies and gentlemen, we have just left Vietnam airspace. And the plane erupted. I mean, this was it. Then all the passengers on the plane could finally relax, because they knew they were going home. What they had dreamed about the whole year they were there.
You literally didn't believe it though until you crossed out of Vietnam
That's
airspace.
it. And the ironic part is I landed in Oakland, and they had given us a brief prior to. You could go from being in combat. They usually brought you back into the rear area for like 3 days, and boy, those 3 days, you couldn't wait for that 3 days to be over, But you had to go and turn all your gear in, and your weaponry and all that stuff,
You guys were just ready for a holiday party.
Yeah, we were ready,
Oh man.
And I went on 2 R&Rs while I was over there. It's usually R&R is usually based on your time in country, but it's done by slots. So they have so many slots allotted to each unit or company that you're assigned to. And I got an R&R after 9 months, and then I came back, and a month later there was a slot, and I was a sergeant at the time, so I got the second R&R before some of the new guys who hadn't been there that long got to go on R&R. So I went to Thailand, and I went to the first one. I went to Hawaii and watched the '70 World Series.
Okay.
So that was
Baseball man.
Yeah, baseball man. And when I went to Bangkok, I've always been a history buff. So the bridge over the River Kwai is in Burma, and Burma's probably it was a 2-hour boat ride and about an hour bus ride to get to the old site at the bridge over the River Kwai. But I mean, I just being there and realizing that whole trestle was built by prisoners of war, I mean, this is history. Another thing that I got to do when I was in Germany, I took a 3-day leave and went to Amsterdam, and I visited Anne Frank's attic. It was the 25th anniversary when I was there of her time in hiding out from the Germans in the attic there.
Yeah.
And it's it's one of the positive things that I've had the opportunity to visit 17 foreign countries, mostly related to my service in the military, leaves and stuff like that, and temporary duty assignments. And so, I never would have got that as a poor kid from the other side of the track, so to speak,
What was you mentioned, I just didn't want to glaze over this without mentioning this. You jump on the flight to come home. I'm wondering, when do you learn on the ground that you're going home? Is that something, does the whole
No,
troop learn?
you knew how much, if you had less than 6 months to go in your service, you didn't have to serve a stateside duty.
Oh, okay.
And by that time, I had 34 months in out of 36.
So you knew you just had to get to a certain date.
Yeah, I knew I was going home. Of course, there's a processing process that you have to go through once you get stateside, and then. But they had told us, they said, don't wear your uniform once you get stateside, because the anti-war process was still very, very active. And matter of fact, when we landed in Oakland at 3:30 in the morning, and there was a bunch of college students, yelling expletive deleters at us, baby kills and stuff like that. And
Were you guys connected to that when you were actually over there, or was that a very different world? Were you surprised when you came back?
We knew what was going on back here in the States, but it was filtered. We found out more about what was going on from the people that were writing us.
It must have been tough to grasp, though. Like, wait,
yeah,
you're at the soldiers, really?
Yeah,
I get being angry at a politician or something, but like,
hate the war, not the warrior.
There you go. Yeah. Is that what the feeling was within all the? I mean, you guys must have got on the ground here and been kind of like, what? Wait, what?
Yeah. I kissed the ground. As a lot of did. This is the USA. This is my home. It's California, but I don't give a shit. I'm going to be in Massachusetts soon.
Yeah. I think about that with and I'm curious. I was going to get into. I'll use this moment to get into this with you right now. When you watch these, we heard a lot of comparisons to Vietnam here with the exit from Afghanistan.
Yeah.
I'm sure you watch these things from afar and maybe makes you cringe a little bit or whatever. Just your thoughts on that.
For me personally, Iraq and Afghanistan, I'm very connected to that because I was president of the Telephone Pioneers of America. I retired from AT&T in North Andover, and I started a program in 2009 that sent care packages to our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. In the beginning, in 2009, it was mostly Iraq, but then it evolved into Afghanistan. And then Afghanistan, we were the longest war in Americans' history prior to Afghanistan, So, I've had soldiers and, all branches of service write me letters. See, a care package from back home, it makes a soldier's day,
Yeah.
And it makes a tremendous difference, especially to people in the infantry who don't get the creature comforts that some of the other branches of the service do,
When you hear those soldiers, though, like I remember hearing many of them just a couple months ago, just talking about how I feel like my service there was a waste. I feel like a lot of those friends I lost was a waste as we pull out here and leave this to the Taliban again. I mean, does that make you cringe a little bit as you're probably hearing a lot of stuff that maybe you guys were saying back then? Like, I feel not appreciated here.
There's, it's very difficult to compare wars because each war is unique in its own right, but there are some similarities between Vietnam and Afghanistan, it was a common knowledge that after Vietnam they said we will have no more Vietnams, where our country is involved in a prolonged war and with little results, Are we going to, win this, I mean, as a Vietnam veteran, we our whole year was focused on survival,
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't lose yourself thinking about other things.
You're not thinking about policy.
Because the enemy is right out there in front of you,
Yeah.
So, you put it into perspective real quick,
Yeah. Again, we're joined here by Dudley Farquhar of Merrimack, Vietnam Staff Sergeant on this Veterans Day. And I guess I want to ask you, too, as we kind of have the final few minutes here with you. I know you think about a lot of your friends lost, a lot of your friends that are still living, too. Let's not forget about them. Some of them probably battling some stuff through the years. I know you've touched on that a little bit today, but what does Veterans Day mean to you here as you sit here another year, and what does it mean to you?
Well, I think Veterans Day is more to honor the people who have served and the people who are currently serving, you know. And I have a very fondness for people who serve in the military today, you know. Their generation is a lot different than mine was, you know, 50 years ago. But these are volunteers. This is an all-volunteer army, and those wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, they really pressed our country, because we may have been ready for the war in Afghanistan, but we were not ready for the aftermath and the overflowing of loss of limbs and brain trauma injuries, you know, and Gulf War syndrome from the oil field fires, you know. And you know, I contacted Agent Orange when I was in Vietnam. We walked through it all the time, you know. It was in the water systems, it was on the trees. And so that resulted in, and I didn't know that I got tested when I first came home. But the way the doctors explained it to me is the Agent Orange got into my blood system and traveled to my liver. And I ended up with liver disease. And at age 65, I was diagnosed with end-stage liver disease. So the only thing that was going to save my life at that point in time was a transplant. And I was on the transplant list for about 14 months. And then I got my transplant, and you know, knock on wood, it's been 9 years. You know,
good for you.
The way I look at it is, I got another 9 years of life. You know,
yeah, you thought that was it.
You can't put a price tag on a gift such as that. You know.
I think I know the answer to this. Do we take care of our vets enough here back home?
Not enough. Nope.
Yeah.
There's you know, you look at something recent, the Holyoke Soldier Zone, you know. That was something that never should have happened, you know.
Yeah.
They put a man in charge there that had no credentials to do that job, you know. I mean, Francisco Urena, who was the commissioner of the Massachusetts Veterans, he was the guy that kind of took the fall, you know.
Yeah.
Because he was the guy in charge, you know. But you know, you talk to the family members who lost, you know, loved ones in that tragedy, and the commission that they formed afterwards to look into the whys and the wherefores of, you know, that happening. You know, that never should have happened, but it does.
And I mean, we're going to have a whole another generation of troops here coming back.
Yeah.
Afghanistan, for instance, we've heard a lot of problems coming out of that, health issues, whether it be hidden health problems, which is not talked about all the time, but
and PTSD for multiple tours. You know, I mean, these guys, you know, they do 2 and 3 tours, and you know, they come home and they call it stopgap, where, you know, you're supposed to be allowed so much time after you deploy. Well, they kept on making it less and less time.
Right.
So these guys were deploying 2 and 3 times, and you know, that takes a toll on, you know.
And the Agent Orange, you mentioned Agent Orange. We've hearing a lot of stories in Afghanistan about the trash. I forget what they called them, but you know, get rid of everything by burning it.
Yeah,
which was a lot of the breathing in of the tough.
So ironically, I had a soldier from Amesbury, and he was attached to the 101st Airborne, and they were right up on the Pakistani border, which is where the Taliban sneak into Afghanistan. And he had completed his tour, and he went back to his base camp, and they told him that he was ready to go home because he had completed I think it was 9 months at the time, and they extended him for a month. And the first day back, he got in a burn pit accident where they're burning the fecal matter and stuff, and it had a flash up. He was standing at the top of the pit, and he was just able to turn the side of his body to protect his head and eyes, and he got burned on 3/4 of the right side of his body. Ended up at Walter Reed, and then they transferred him to a burn unit in Fort Sam, Houston, which is one of the best burn centers in the world, actually. They come from all over the world to get treated there. But, you know, he's doing good now. He wanted to stay in, but he was so badly burned that the 101st Airborne, you have to go through cold weather training to qualify and keep your status as a airborne ranger. And with his burns, he couldn't go through the cold weather because of his body condition. But he healed up to the point where he took the course and he's back on active duty, you know. Mm-hmm. But his parents, who are I'm very close to them because the father was a member of the VFW with me, you know, and they went out to Fisher House, is a great organization that allows family members of veterans to stay close to the hospital where their sons or daughters are being treated, you know. And they went out to visit him a number of times while he was going through rehab. And another ironic thing is this airport where they all left Afghanistan for. I actually had the major that was in charge of that airport, and he came home in June. I had three different soldiers this past year that all came home in June. So, because I just celebrated 12 years of sending care packages to the troops, and I decided earlier in the year that I would retire after this. The final, I have a group in Africa right now, an Army Infantry unit. But when they go back home, I'm gonna. It's time, you know.
It's a lot of work.
I'm 74 years old now, you know.
You look great for 74.
Yeah, so it's been a hell of a run, you know.
It sure has. Again, Dudley Farquhar joining us here. Nice enough to spend Veterans Day with us and give us some wartime stories. My final question or two, and I know you're going to end, and we're going to end the show with a poem that you had prepared, and I'll let you take us home with that in a moment. But I wonder, I could sit here and listen to you all day because these stories are amazing, and it feels like obviously I wasn't alive for the Vietnam War, and it's quite a chapter in our history. So I could listen to this all day, but I do wonder, does it get hard to talk about at all? So many people in Vietnam struggled with, and I know you've made it a purpose to go out there and share a lot of these stories.
It's gotten easier over the years. Initially, when I came home, you know, I married the girl that was writing me. She lived in Ipswich, and our neighbors were a family whose son. I got married in May of 1972, and their son got shot down in March of that same year. He was an Air Force pilot, and there was a bunch of Vietnam veterans that were living in Ipswich at the time. They started a group called Operation Triumph Incorporated, and it was their sole purpose to get an accounting for all our POWs. We had 63 POW MIAs from Massachusetts. But I got involved with Mr. and Mrs. Hardy, and I took speech in high school, but, you know, I didn't have a lot of opportunities where you get up and, you know, make a presentation in front of a lot of people. But Mrs. Hardy, she spoke from the perspective of a mother, and I spoke from the perspective of a Vietnam veteran. And we made a good team, and I went through my work at AT&T. I took a course, Dale Carnegie Public Speaking. Ended up number two in my class, and I was there with a lot of, you know, college-educated people who had a lot more, you know, life experience with, you know, public speaking than I ever did. But that course helped me, and you know, I went on to, you know, speak to high schools and colleges and, middle schools, about the POW issue, and also about Operation Platoon Mom, which is the care package program that I started in 2009.
And I'm guessing you talk with a lot of fellow soldiers that maybe you didn't serve directly with, but served in Vietnam.
Yeah, I have that. I have that. I have a network of friends all over the country. Well, I designed a POW three-flag pin for every state, and it took me 10 years to do that. But because of that, I have contacts in every state, and I've designed T-shirts and sweatshirts and hats, stuff like that, for the prisoner of war.
That's not one of them, is it? You got
No.
Oh, okay.
But this is a design that I did.
Is that working there, Sarah?
That
Back it up a little bit. Hold it closer to you.
This is an actual panel from the Vietnam Memorial that
Sarah will come help.
that we took a professional photographer took it, and then I added some things
You can talk to him, Sarah. It's okay.
to it.
A little higher, yeah. There you go.
Towards the camera.
There you go. You got it right. Good. We got it.
And
on
then
there.
on the flip side of this is a miniature memorial that we did for all the killed in action in the Gulf War, Iraq, and Afghanistan. And these banners include 7,058 names and 112 in gold lettering from Massachusetts. So these are the type of things that came available to me after I was involved in the prisoner of war missing in action issue.
Wow.
That was the thing that kind of brought me out of the closet, so to speak, from my years as a Vietnam veteran.
And it's been a nice 9 bonus years, right?
Yes, it has.
Let's make it 10, 11, and 12. How about that, huh? Keep it rolling. Dudley Farquhar, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a pleasure. I know we're going to do the poem here. I want to say thank you to Tyler Neufeld, Sarah Hayden, and Sarah Blackstone, who is a new face for me. Hello, Sarah, that we're producing today. I got it right, Blackstone? We literally just met before the show. This is the first time we've met. So new faces here as we return to the studio. It's very nice to be back and good to see you all. No better day to do it here than for our Veterans Day show. And with that, Dudley, I know you wanted to read a poem that means a lot to you. I will let you take it away, and we'll end the show with that. Good to see everybody again. Happy Veterans Day.
Yes, I'd like to give you a little lead into this poem. In 1982, I went to Washington, D.C. for the dedication ceremony of the Vietnam Memorial. And we went I was living in Ipswich at the time. I went with some fellow Vietnam veterans from Ipswich. And Massachusetts, they had people from every state in the country. All 50 states were representative, and a lot of them marched as a state contingent. Well, we marched in front of the Massachusetts contingent, and we carried a large 5x8 POW MIA flag. But the main reason why I wanted to go to the dedication, because the platoon sergeant that I talked to you earlier about, his name is on the wall, so I wanted to physically go to the wall and touch the letters of his name on the wall. So this poem is dedicated to his memory. I can't think of a more appropriate time than to read you this poem. And the poem is titled Vietnam Once Again. Some people come into our lives and quickly go. Some stay for a while and leave memories in our hearts, and we are never, ever the same. Bob Dawson was more than a soldier in a strange land. He was my friend. Vietnam once again. Was it really that long ago? They called us the flower generation, children of the 60s. The Beatles, hula hoops, and woo-woo Ginsburg. But along came Vietnam to shatter our private worlds. They sent us to basic training to learn about Mr. Charles. We were young and it seemed exciting. But why don't the faces go away? We left our American bandstand world, but America wasn't behind us. We fought the gallant fight, but weren't allowed to win. Some of us were lucky. We came back. The POW MIAs can't say the same. The media did a job on us, a a betrayal that wasn't fair. The drug addicts and baby killers came home, and we lived with Callie's mistake. For years we hid in our closet world and hoped America would come around. We watched the hotspots with vivid reality, knowing it could happen once again. The war is over, but the battle lingers on. So Washington erected the wall. Names on top of names, but one meant so much to me. Dawson. To most everyone, just a name among thousands. But to his platoon, he was the best. He gave his life for his men. 6 letters on a wall, no thank you. Vietnam, the hurt lives on. Dedicated to the memory of Staff Sergeant Robert Clark Dawson, killed in action June 18th, 1970, Chulai, Vietnam. To all my fellow veterans who might be listening today, I have just 2 words for you. Welcome home.
Vietnam Staff Sergeant Dudley Farquhar, thank you, sir, so much for your service, and happy Veterans Day to you. See you next time, everybody.